Welcome to She Sells Radio. All right, my friend, this week I've got another solo episode for you, which we're getting back into interviews for next week, but I've actually had so much fun doing these solo episodes and I think I'm going to do some more. So I hope you've been enjoying them. And I've also got amazing guests coming up for you starting next week too. But today, what I want to talk with you about is a topic that was actually inspired by a text I received from a client just a couple days ago. And we're talking today about how to increase the good and the abundance that you allow into your life. And yes, I want you to pay attention to that word, allow. And so I received this text from a client just a couple days ago, and she sent me this picture of, it was her and her husband, and they were out shopping. And they'd had so much fun. They had their shopping bags out, like big smiles. And she said, when you decide that money is fluid, and as I talk about it, as I even talk about it now, I get chills because I know how much this woman, like myself and like other clients who I get to serve, have had to create new belief systems about what we're willing to allow in and what we are willing to receive and decide that we are worthy of. And I know it wasn't always that way for her, and it definitely wasn't always that way for me either. And so part of why this matters so much for those of us who are selling, right? Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a sales professional, or maybe you're selling your ideas to your team, but we're all in sales. Your income will never exceed your level of self-worth. So if you're taking notes, I want you to write that down. Your income will never exceed your level of self-worth. And oftentimes the thing that is limiting that next level of income, of sales, of financial abundance in your life is not that you need a better funnel or a better script, although maybe, right? Maybe we're always over here in She Sells world, we're always working on getting better there and tweaking and improving those. But what I've noticed in my own experience is I can tweak a funnel. I can tweak and tweak and tweak a funnel until it can be tweaked no more. But if I've got any energy of resistance around receiving more, it doesn't matter. It doesn't work. But when I've learned, and it's a conscious thing and it's a decision I make every day. And some days are better than others. But when I really allow, when I learn to just sit back and receive and allow and feel worthy of receiving the clients, the money, the opportunities, the happipiness and joy that I desire, that's when those DMs come in from people who are like, hey, I've been watching you for a long time and I want private coaching with you, or, hey, I need to do, I've been hanging out on the sidelines and now I've decided I need to jump in and work with you. How can we do it? And that is how it works. So your income will never exceed your level of self-worth. And so this conversation today on this podcast is about upleveling your self-worth and upleveling the amount that you're willing to allow into your life. Because when we do that, when we have higher expectation for ourselves, for how much money we make, for how our clients work with us, and for what we're available for, unavailable for, that's when things start to really shift and get exciting in our lives. That's when the real magic happens. And when I think about allowing and what that looks like, one of my mentors used to say, and I love this, and I think about it all the time, how good are you willing to let life get? How good are you willing to let life get? And it's not about, how hard are you going to work to get a little bit more, but it's how good are you willing to let life get? So shout out to Gina DeVee for being the first person who really made me think that way. And I want you to think about that word, willing. So how much are you willing to allow in your life? And, part of why this was inspired as well, I shared on last week's podcast, if you listened to it, about how this past summer, so a few months ago, the energy around certain areas of my life, I noticed felt stagnant and it felt heavy. And to me, anytime that's happening, it's not fun in the moment, but it's a mirror back of how I'm being. And I noticed in that moment, I was like, okay, there's clearly some inner work that needs to be done here, because this is just all being mirrored back to me of some places where I'm not willing and not allowing more in, not allowing in what I want. That's why it feels heavy and feels like a slog in some ways. And so I did that inner work. I kind of went back to deepening the practice of meditation and deepening my affirmations and writing a new, life script and listening to it over and over again. And then, like I shared on the podcast last week, and go back and listen to it if you haven't yet, but so much flew. Actually, I think if you're listening to this in sequential order, it's two podcast episodes ago. But so much started happening so fast because I had kind of removed the cork that was blocking things, if that makes sense. And so boom, boom, boom. This is just a couple of days ago as I record this. My husband took his MCAT. The next day we sold our house. The following day we sold one of our cars, both for more than we thought that we were going to get for them. And now we signed this lease on this beautiful new place that we're going to be living in North Carolina for about 9 months. And it's a dream place. And I had to really work on, and this is the work, the work is the inner work, is the allowing those types of things to come in quickly, because actually so I want you to think about in your own life, when have things felt stagnant and stuck? And then when have things just come in really fast for you? And the things coming in fast, and when I say things coming in fast, I'm saying what you want coming in fast. Clients, money, opportunities, etc. That's when you're in that higher vibrational place, right? Those come, and it if you start to track it, if you haven't yet, and you'll start to notice it. When you're in that place of allowing and receiving, like Abraham Hicks says, the art of allowing, because it is an art. When you're in that energy and in that place, those things you want, they come in ways that feel really fast. But that's your norm. And it's not that, our whole life here is going to be one where it's just everything you want comes in continuously, and there's never any challenges along the way, because the challenges are always preparing you for that next up level. So those are normal. The rhythm of your emotions is normal too. So that it's not an indication that anything is wrong, but when things feel slower or when they feel harder, what you want is not coming in, what that means is you've got some sort of a block on allowing in what you desire. And then it's like, okay, it's your invitation to go to work at figuring out what that block is and how to release it. Okay. And so that's what I want to talk with you about on the podcast today, is how do you do that? And how do you increase your capacity to allow more in? And so there's 3 steps that I want to take you through today. And the first is just to notice. It's just to notice, because so much of our life we spend in unawareness, because we just kind of think things are what they are. I don't know about you, but for me, for most of my life, I had no idea that I was in full control of everything that was happening to me. And because of that, because I didn't know that, I would try to control everyone and everything around me, but it was from a very anxious, gripping energy. So this is different, right? This is a different kind of control, which is more about controlling your inner state. But I just want you to notice and take note of a couple core things here that are going to indicate to you how much you are willing to allow or not allow into your life. And I would notice what your money rules are, and I'll give some context for those, but a lot of times, we pick up on money behavior and money rules from our parents or the people who raised us, and we don't even realize that they are creating our reality for us, because we're living according to a belief system that may not serve us. And so growing up in my family, we were upper middle class. We had money for sure. We always had luxury cars, we had nice homes, but we always clipped coupons. And there was a year where my mom tracked everything we spent down to the penny and kept a logbook of it. And I remember, and I never really put 2 and 2 together, but there was this kind of feeling that I then took into my adulthood of, we have money, but we don't. And we have money, but it could all go away. And you have money, but you got to be really cheap or else you won't have it. And so I don't know if I would really think about back to your childhood, like what were the money rules that you saw your parents demonstrate? And they were just, again, they were doing the best they could with their own belief system. And they, for most of us, our parents didn't have podcasts or a lot of information like this. They weren't, at least my parents weren't paying attention to information like this. And so they were, they were just doing the best they could with what they had. And they did great in so many ways. But that was definitely a money rule I picked up on that I then took with me into my adulthood. And even though I always made enough money to pay bills and like to really have what I wanted, there was always an anxiety and a fear around it going away. I had strange rules about like, I can buy work clothes because that's how I got my value, was when I was working. That was how I felt safe and secure, because I was like, I'm making money so I can invest back into nicer work clothes. But not too nice, right? It was like Express. Like I would shop at Express all the time, which is no dig on Express. It's great clothing, but I would never dream of buying like a designer. I would never have allowed myself to buy anything like that, designer clothing. And so, but then I couldn't invest on workout clothes because I didn't value that part of myself as much. So I'd go to Target and buy the cheap workout clothes. And so I picked up on, these money rules where it was like, I always wanted nice things. That's just, you could probably relate to that, right? And we make ourselves wrong for that too, where we want the luxury car, we want to travel first class, we want to do the VIP experience, but we say, oh, that's for somebody else. Or, oh, I'm just being greedy. And it's really not. It's your desire for those things is just the spirit in you. So God's spirit in you wanting fuller expression. You live in a physical world. There's a reason why everything is physical, because that's how you experience yourself here, is by having that physical experience. But I would really make myself wrong for wanting to have any sort of, I had boundaries around what I was willing to spend and what I wasn't willing to spend on things, if that makes sense. And I was always wanting more, but not allowing more in. And it always felt hard, right? It always felt like I had to work so hard to make money. And my relationship with how money came in was, the more hours I worked and the more aggressive I was, the more money would come in. And I didn't really stop and pay attention to the fact that for about 10 years of living that way, although I was making 100,000, 120,000 a year, which is good money, but you're not going to go live your best life on that. No matter how hard I worked, I always made that much. Okay. And so just notice those money rules and what they are. I have clients, girlfriends who would just notice stuff like, oh, I've got a money rule. Like I can only spend X amount on groceries every week, or I can buy the nice brand, but not the full designer brand. Okay. So just notice, zero judgment on it, but just noticing, because that's going to tell you the amount so far that you've been willing to allow into your life. Okay. And notice where you're not allowing what you want to come in as well. And here's another example, because it doesn't just have to do with money. It has to do with time and experiences and freedom as well. And our son now, as I record this, is he's like 13 and a half months. And this past spring, I was really kind of in what felt like that squeeze of, our business was really growing, and there was a lot of new responsibility that I was taking on as leader of this company, and new team members we were hiring, and new processes, putting it like lots and lots on the work and lots on the work front. But yet I've got this, little 5-month-old, 6-month-old that I desperately want to spend more time with. And I found myself in this tricky place that I think a lot of moms can relate to being in. And I remember talking to my coach about this and feeling like I couldn't reconcile both of those desires. I wanted more time with my son. I wanted to be present for him growing up. And I also wanted to be really successful at work. And I just want to also acknowledge, like, I know that is such a common thing. And I remember in that moment, like how heart-wrenching things felt like, where I felt like I had to decide between whether we were going to, hit the financial targets for that month, or whether I was going to have time with my son. And so, I think I was closing out work around 3 o'clock every day. So still like, better hours than many women who are working full-time in the workforce, right? Or even if maybe you're an entrepreneur and running your own business, but you're burning the candle at both ends. So it was still definitely for me less hours than I was used to working, but there was a lot that was happening in his life that I wasn't seeing. And I felt like I don't know how to reconcile both of these. And I felt a lot of tension in that desire. So I was talking with my coach and I said, I think, for us to be able to keep growing as a company and growing at the rate we are, like, I need more childcare. And like, I'm just gonna have to do that for a season to make sure that we're good financially and hitting those targets and the company keeps growing. And she actually really challenged me. And that's part of what's great about coaching, right? Is like, we think we're right all the time. And then a coach will take what you say and totally flip it on its head. And she said, Elyse, and at the time, the focus was like $100,000 months for the revenue. And again, I'm just giving these numbers for context for you, but she's like, Elyse, you can do that in your sleep. Like, how to have $100,000 month in your sleep. She said, your edge and where you're actually going to learn the most and grow the most right now is spending time with your son. And she said, I don't want you to have more childcare. I don't want you to hire a nanny for more. I want you to reduce your hours, spend more time with him, because that's where you're feeling resistance right now. So that's where you're going to grow the most. And trust and know that you've got the processes in place to help grow and scale your business and create the belief system. And this is what really helped me create the belief system that you generate the most clients when you're spending quality time with your family. And I know, like, especially if you're coming in for the first time to this podcast, welcome. We talk about things that aren't commonly accepted here that challenged every belief system that I had around how making money worked in my life, around what was possible in my life. And I remember she told me this, and I said, I had to make her repeat the numbers at the beginning, but she said, I work about 10 hours a week and we have a $3.5 million company and we're growing. And I remember listening to that and thinking, there are days, not so much since I had my son, but certainly before, days, 10-hour days. And I know if you're listening, you very likely put in 10-hour days. Maybe you're putting those in right now. But she said, my belief system is that I generate clients by being myself. And I generate clients when I'm walking on the beach with my family. And I generate clients when I'm spending time with my kids. And that was a very powerful reframe for me. And so I didn't instantly launch into like shutting off at noon and spending time with my son all afternoon and making more money immediately that way. But I did I said, well, if it works for her, let's try it. Let's see if it works for me. And started to affirm that belief system, started to actually track my hours and see how I could reduce the amount of time I was spending. And I started noticing, sure enough, there was plenty of things where I just had to uplevel my viewpoint of myself to say, oh, as CEO of this business, I really shouldn't be involved in these emails in the first place that are sucking away, 30 minutes to an hour of every day. And someone who makes the amount of money that I desire to make and also has the life out, like, she wouldn't be doing this stuff. And so I had to really filter through that lens. And as I record this, I'm not working 10 hours a week, but I'm probably working closer to maybe 20, 25, and spending the rest of the time with family and doing what I love. And we're making more money and we're bringing on dream clients and we're, happy. When I say we, I mean the team and my family and myself. And that's that. So when I talk about this, I want you to notice, like, I was not allowing in the possibility of working less. Like, to me, there was a kind of a limit to how much I felt like I could make based upon the number of hours I was working. And it had to be a reframe of, no, the less I work, like the less involved I am in the day-to-day, the more we make. And here's the thing, you got to show up and do the thing. Okay. So I'm not saying you're not going to do anything here, That's, I want you to be very clear with that. It's about the quality of what you're doing during that time. And so are you doing high leverage activities? Are you doing low leverage, frantic, busy work? And so I've had to really focus in on like, I only do these core types of activities now, and everything else gets done through team or through somebody else. But then also creating the belief system for yourself of, you do create more clients when you are spending time with family or when you're taking the best care of yourself, right? Like how often I remember working with, another woman several months ago who she was really like running herself into the ground because she had a belief system that she had to work twice as hard as everybody else to achieve the same results. And because of some of her heritage. And I remember we talked about like how that was not serving her. And she was physically starting to have a lot of issues. And we really did a reframe on like, she actually creates the best results when she is taking the best care of herself and when she's spending more time on self-care. And so this is really, really important. It's so important. And we often just don't notice it because as Bob Proctor talks about, your paradigm, it's that ingrained belief system that runs the show for you that you don't even realize is running the show for you. But whatever rules you have around how much money you're allowing into your life, how much joy you're allowing in, how much time freedom you're allowing in, just look at your results and look at how you're showing up every day and notice. And that's going to tell you the rules that are running the show for you. So the first step is to notice. And then the second step is you want to create belief systems that actually support you in allowing more into your life. And so I would invite you, we're doing a training on September 21st on how to rewire your brain for success and for what you want. And so if you want to get in on that training, send me a DM and I'll send you the link. You can just DM me at Elyse Archer on Instagram, or you can email assist, ASSIST at ElyseArcher.com. And my assistant will send you the link if you want to register for that. But you've got to create belief systems that support you. And the noticing and the belief systems kind of overlap a little bit, right? But I wanted to break them out into two. And the belief system. So again, register for this training if you want to like really do a deep dive in how to rewire your belief systems to support you. But I remember one of my belief systems from growing up was that people like us didn't fly first class. So I don't know if you can relate to that, but I always thought, oh, first class is like, it's such a quote unquote waste of money. And so I never did. So I always flew coach, flew Southwest, used points, and shout out to Southwest, by the way. I love Southwest. I mean, we fly Southwest sometimes, especially with Jack, it's like, it's easier, but I would never have dreamed of allowing myself to fly first class. But I started working with mentors and high level mentors where they wouldn't dream of not flying first class. And I remember thinking like, what is the difference between them and me? And I started looking at, they've got different money beliefs and different money rules. And one of the beliefs that I started creating that I would encourage you to create for yourself is that money always, always, always shows up to support your expansion and your expression. And part of your expansion is traveling in a way that makes you feel high vibe and makes you feel luxe. And so I started giving myself permission to fly first class. And I remember the first time, it kind of ties in with like where I had a great belief system and I had a not so great belief system going. But one of the first times I flew first class was to Italy for this mastermind, and it was taking place in Venice. And I remember, hopping on that international flight and like settling in to my first class ticket, my first class seat, and just feeling the different energy in that part of the plane. And it is different. If you fly first class, it is different. And I had to really like anchor in the belief that it was okay to invest. And again, with money, use the word invest, not spend, to like really help you think about money working for you. But to invest that money in myself and saying, I am worth having this type of an experience and I'm worth allowing myself to fly first class. And I don't think I told family or friends, even didn't really talk about it much because I knew I would get questions, especially from my family, about, well, you know, you could have saved that money. You could have done this with it. Why are you doing that? But the up-leveled experience I had in Italy, because I allowed myself to fly first class and showed up refreshed and had beautiful food on the flight and was able to lean back and relax more and journal. I had so many ahas, so many downloads come because it was in that energy that later went on to help me sell more and grow my business more. It was transformational. And I remember on that trip also, you know, lodging, and we were doing the retreat, the mastermind at this beautiful, it was, I don't know if it was a palace. I think it actually was. Here's what's funny. I think it was a former mental asylum that was converted into a palace. So there was definitely some energy going on there, but it was cool. And it was, you know, the rooms were gorgeous. But I remember one night that I was there, because I had an old story about procrastinating on booking my travel because I didn't want to spend the money on it. So I procrastinated on booking travel. And the only room that was left for one of the nights I was there was like the nicest room at the hotel. And I remember seeing the quote for it and going, oh my gosh, that's like a mortgage. That's a mortgage payment in one night. That's a month's mortgage. But it was all that was left. And so I had to really anchor into, I am the type of woman who can fly first class and stay in the nicest suite in this hotel and enjoy it. And it was such an up-leveled experience. It was a beautiful suite. I remember there was some mix up too. And there was someone who was having a birthday that night. And I guess this guy was supposed to get this beautiful like cake and candy and champagne and treats. And somehow it ended up in my room when I got back from having this fun night with girlfriends out in Venice. And I showed up and there was this big birthday spread, like with just the most beautiful desserts, most beautiful Italian desserts you could ever imagine. And I called down and I was like, I think there's a mix up. Someone else was supposed to get this. And they said, oh, okay, like no problem. Just keep it and enjoy it for yourself. And so that's what happens, that like you get fun surprises like that when you decide you're worth it. And when you decide that there's nothing different in anybody other than nothing different in anyone who has what you want, other than they decided they were worth it. And they decided they were willing to allow it into their life. Now, the part of my belief system that now I kind of laugh about, but I was unaware of at the time. So I still definitely had a scarcity energy going on to what I was doing. It was like I was, you know, doing this trip, flying first class, staying in this nice suite, but there was still like some guilt around it. Like, oh my gosh, can I do this? Is this too much? Yada, yada. And so I wanted to get photos done at this particular mastermind. And there was a photographer who was brought in and flown in from the States, who was like the photographer for this group of women. And she does beautiful photos, but her packages, I think, started at around $3,000 for the package. And I wanted new brand photos. And I thought, gosh, wouldn't Italy be a great place to get them done in? But I had, in my mind, I felt like I had already, quote unquote, spent so much on the flight and on the hotel that I was like, I'd reached my cap in terms of how much expansion I was willing to allow in. And so I was like, oh, well, I want photos with this woman, but it's just too much to do it all. So I'm going to go see if there's a local photographer who can do my photos. So I find this local guy and he's like $300 for the day. And I was like, oh, awesome. I can get photos and I don't have to break the bank on this and yada, yada. And so I booked the photo shoot with him and look, he's a nice guy. Like the photos were good. I'll say that, but they honestly, most of them I couldn't use. I mean, a girl needs to have a little retouching, a little help with some of them. There was none of that. The angles were awkward. The lighting wasn't good on a lot of them. I looked at some of them and thought, oh my gosh, I didn't know I had that wrinkle. Like again, I'll keep it real with you here on the podcast. And so there's probably, got this beautiful trip to Italy, the opportunity for gorgeous photos that we could use again and again for my brand. And my girlfriends who went and invested in themselves and allowed themselves to have the pro photographer, like the photos are stunning. And I've got maybe 5 photos that I can use from this shoot that we've used for my brand. But, looking back on it, it was a great experience in realizing how much I was willing to allow and the money rules that were at play about what is too much. So I just want you to notice that. And again, any part of your life where you're not receiving at the level that you desire, there's part of you, it's like there's something you're not willing to allow in. Okay. And so you want to keep going back to, how good am I willing to let life get? How good am I willing to let life get? And then the third step to this, so first is notice. Second is create the belief systems that support you. And then the third is to relax and focus on feeling good. Okay, relax and focus on feeling good. And this one was the hardest for me to understand and the hardest for me to come to grips with, okay, because it defies most everything that you're taught about how you make money, about how you sell, about how you create success in this world. And here's what I want you to know. Any sort of negative emotion in your body, ranging from boredom to overwhelm, to anxiety, to anger, frustration, all the way down to depression, grief, is literally resistance to what you want. It's friction, it's resistance. Okay. So when it starts to make sense, and we're not going to do a deep dive into emotions and frequency on this particular podcast, but your emotions, everything vibrates on this planet. You do. That's the way you're able to hear this, is that there's a sound vibration going into your ear. So this particular podcast has a vibration and a frequency. That's how you're able to tune into this and then tune into another podcast and then go on to Sirius Radio and listen to something else. All those vibrations are happening simultaneously where you are right now, but it's just whichever one you're tuned into right now. That's how you're a match for it. That's why you're able to listen to it. And so your emotions are your body's conscious way of telling you what you're a vibrational match for. And so everything that you desire, everything you want, also has a frequency to it. And the things that you want, so let's say you're making $100,000 a year, but you want to make $1 million a year. Well, that $1 million a year has a higher frequency than that $100,000 a year. Okay. And so that you want to tap in and think about, what does that $1 million a year feel like? Because the only reason you want it, the only reason you want anything, is because of how you think it's going to make you feel when you have it. So what does it feel like? And you just really think about this. It's actually quite true. You want the car because you think it's going to make you feel excited, up-leveled, expansive, like you're going to have that experience, that higher level experience of yourself. You want the money because you think it's going to feel like freedom, opportunity, ease, I can breathe, joy, again, expansiveness. So you want to tune into what is the feeling state of that thing that you want, of that thing you desire, and learn that you can live it now. So you want to learn to look outside less and look inside more, and practice that feeling now and focus on feeling good now. So there's the book by Neville Goddard. We actually did it as part of our Morning Sales Supercharged series on feeling is the secret. And it's so, so, so true. Feeling good is the secret to everything you want in your life. And you feel bad when you're thinking that there's something you want, but you can't have it, or you're not worthy of something, and your body feeling bad in that negative emotion. It's your body's way of telling you that you're actually thinking something that contradicts who you are. Okay. Now, I'm not saying go out and buy everything you ever wanted right now, if that's going to go like max out your credit cards and put you in a negative place emotionally. Okay. So that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, I want you to focus on feeling good now, relaxing, noticing when you're in a negative emotional state. No judgment on it again, but notice that is resistance. You're actually creating friction and resistance. It's kind of like if you thought about your emotions as, appreciation, love, joy is at the very top of the scale. And then grief, depression is at the bottom. Grief, depression, shame is at the bottom. There's when we're in those lower level emotions, it's like we're literally pushing ourselves down. We're creating friction and resistance from what we want. And so when we learn to focus on feeling good, despite what's happening outside of us, but when you focus on feeling good, it's like you're a cork that's bobbing back up to the surface. And now you're back. Your natural state is feeling good. Your natural state is well-being. Your natural state is appreciation and joy and happiness. And when you focus on those things, you can only bring into your life what you're a match for. And you know what you're a match for by how you're feeling. So if you want the $1 million, so if you're sitting here and you're earning $100,000 a year, but you want the $1 million a year because you think it's going to make you feel expansive, excited, abundant, prosperous, but then you stay in an emotion of not enough, anxiety, overwhelm, you're not a match for it. So it can't come to you, or you'll get it by, you like win the lottery and then lose it all afterwards, because who you are being is not a match for it. Okay. So you can, the beautiful part about this, because it's very empowering, is you can match it now. And when you're that match for it, but you have to focus on how you're feeling first and stop waiting for something to shift in your outer conditions to decide that you're going to feel good. But when you realize that when you feel good, then you're a match for what you want. The way that it works is now you're a vibrational match for it. So if you focused, what if you just focused today, this week, this month, the rest of your life, and it won't take that long because you'll bring it in way faster and then you'll decide you're ready for more. But what if you focused for now on being a vibrational match for the thing that you desire, feeling the feelings that you're going to feel when it comes in? What happens is now you're a match for it. So now this is when you start to receive ideas, inspiration, downloads, nudges. You should talk to this person. You should launch this program. You should hire this coach. You should do that. You should go there, because those are the actions that you're going to take that are going to help you receive that thing that you want, which is increasing how much you're willing to allow in. So, but we've got to get ourselves there first. You're never going to be given the answers for how to get where you want to go from where you are now to where you want to be by staying in an emotional state of suffering, lack, anxiety, overwhelm, etc. So choose to match the emotions of it now. Focus on feeling good. And I remember when I first heard that, one, it felt so foreign. But when I started just listening to it and thinking about it and realizing, like, yeah, it actually kind of does make sense. And I started focusing on my go-to emotional pattern was anxiety and not enoughness. So when I started focusing on peace, calm, worthiness, allowing, the emotional part shifted first. So I started to feel better first, but then very quickly thereafter, huge financial up levels, huge life up levels, because I had become a match for what I wanted. And there is story after story after story after story of women who are in the She Sells community, and men who are having those experiences because they've learned to create in a more powerful way. And they've learned to call in what they want and allow in more for themselves now, not tomorrow, not next week, but now. So I just want to recap for you how to allow in more of what you want, how to increase your ability to receive the good and the abundance that you desire. Just notice how, like, what your rules are right now, how much you're willing to allow in, to create the belief systems that support you. And again, send me a DM if you want to get in on that training. It's September 21st. We'll send you the link to get registered. And then number 3, relax and focus on feeling good. Because when you do that, you release the resistance to what you want from coming in. And then it can all come in, and it comes in fast because it's been there, like queued up for you all along. You just had some resistance around allowing it in. Okay. So I hope this serves you. This is, from my heart to yours. And I would be so honored if this speaks to you, if you would rate and review the podcast. And if you would share this with someone who you think could benefit from it, who you know is ready for more in her life or his life as well. So, all right, my friend, I love you. I'm grateful for you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you on next week's episode of She Sells Radio. Bye for now.